Today's Saturday, November 1st, 2008, and I'm interviewing Mr. Ralph Goldsmith of Irvington, New York, in his home for the Library of Congress Veterans History Project. My name is Debbie Field, and I'm the interviewer, and Mr. Goldsmith has been a friend of mine for about 10 years. And present in the room are Ralph's wife, Ruth Goldsmith, and his daughter, Lori Goldsmith. So Ralph, if you could just state for the recording which war and which branch of service you served in?
Which war? Yeah, there was more than one. World War II, the branch would be the infantry of the United States Army, and most of this would be relating, I'm sure, to D-Day, June 6, 1944. It was a large war that I think at times I won all by myself.
Okay, and what was the highest rank you achieved?
The highest rank was PFC, which is Private First Class.
Okay. I just want to start with a little background information on you and your family before the draft.
Before
you were drafted.
The draft.
So if you could just tell us a little bit about your
Before
parents.
the draft, yeah.
What kind of work they did.
I was a kid of 16 or 17 years old, so I was working in a grocery store part-time and going to school at a very young age to be working, but no big deal about it. And we had just moved to the Bronx from Coney Island. My father had died. We lived in Coney Island. We then moved to the Bronx to be near certain relatives, I guess. And again, finished high school, went to work at Manhattan Stationery Company in a stationery outfit, delivering orders and wrapping packages and this sort of thing. And then came the draft, which led to the war that I said I won.
Talk about the draft, because you did not enlist, you were drafted. And can you just talk about how that process went a little?
Yeah, I was definitely drafted. I did not enlist. I thought my specialty was to be a typist. They thought machine gun is a little more apropos. They won. I lost. And therefore, we were in the Army. It was a draft, definitely. Just about everybody male that could walk would be drafted. It was enormous. It was all through the entire United States. And a lot of women volunteered as well, because everybody was behind this one major situation at that point.
All right. And when you were drafted, could you talk a little bit about the training camp, where you first went?
Oh yeah, I could talk a lot about it, but we'll talk a little about it. When I was drafted, well, originally you get sent to Camp Upton. It's in Long Island. You stay there just a few days, and then you go to the camp that you're going to do your basic training. That would be Camp Shelby, Mississippi. Now there's 90 days in the year that you do not want to be in Mississippi, from June 1st to September 1st. I was there though, I got lucky. I went June 2nd to September 1st. It was hot, humid, rotten climate conditions, terrible. I thought this was the war, but it was in the United States and no one was firing on us except insects, bugs, heat, and so on. And then September did come around. We left for Fort Meade, Maryland. And then that was the end of the basic training, which takes 13 weeks. Everybody does 13 weeks basic. You then get assigned to another camp. You stay there a week or two. You then leave for either Europe or the Pacific or wherever you're going to end up being. In my case, it was Europe. And in my case, it was the 1st Infantry Division. I thought it was a typing situation, but really it wasn't. And it was the 1st Infantry Division. I was one of the very few replacements or draftees in that outfit. Primarily, they were a regular Army outfit. They were enlisted men, primarily, very few draftees. And they had been all through North Africa and Sicilian campaign before I ever got there. So I skipped those two campaigns, which was not a bad deal. However, I joined them in England. We were all in England, southern part of England, coastal area, where you sort of now will have what they call really pretty much combat training for about 6 months before the invasion, which would be in June of 1944. This was around the fall of 1943, around November.
Can you talk a little bit about that specialized training that you had
The
in Europe?
specialized training, sure. The specialized training is really special. They are preparing you for an invasion. We had mock boats, we had mock landing craft, we had water situations where they dropped the ramp just as if it were an actual invasion. It assimilated exactly battlefield conditions. Actually, there were also machine gunners, they were Americans, firing at us in situations. Of course, the gun was fired high, way over our head, but everything was exactly, and it turned out to be, except for that live ammunition that the Germans had a couple of guns. But if not for that little differential, it was really well done, and we did that 4 times at a place called Slapton Sands. Nobody ever heard of Slapton Sands. It's a rural area of England that you would do this sort of thing at Slapton Sands. It was about a 4-hour truck drive from our basic hotel that we stayed at. When I say hotel, this was not the Waldorf Astoria. It was a little small 3-story hotel. But you took the 4-hour truck ride and you were at Slapton Sands. And later that night, 12 hours later, we came back to our hotel. The training situation of that day was over. But we would do that 3 more times, total of 4. And it was well done. It was excellent. It was really prepared you, if anything can prepare you. D-Day is a whole other story, which we'll get into, I'm sure, a little later. But you can't be prepared for that.
And was there also aerial and naval? Was it a
Yeah, there were the United States 8th Air Force flew overhead as sort of reconnaissance, which is what they did at D-Day too. Reconnaissance, not too successfully on Omaha Beach, incidentally, but they did. And the conditions were very, very much the same. As a matter of fact, a few, not too many, guys got seasick on the exercise that we were doing in England. Many more got seasick in the actual invasion because this was a small boat. The channel was very, very rough, and it was an entirely little different situation, but similar in a lot of respects. And so the training regimen was very, very good. And here and there you get visited by General Eisenhower or not General Patton, he was in a different group, General Bradley, which was our general, Omar Bradley, of the First Army. We were part of the First Army. And they oversaw the whole thing. Did it go well? Did it meet their specifications? And I guess it did, because we were never criticized, although I don't think the criticism would have gone over too well. And that's basically the lead-in to it. We were in England about 6 months. We stayed in this little tiny hotel, 4 men to a room. And every evening after dinner, I use the word dinner, KP, you would go to town. You would be free to go to town, which was about 1 mile away. You could walk it and spend it and then come back to sleep and start the routine training the next one. Training was pretty much every day though. Not that Slapton Sands situation, but the training, a little 10-mile hike with full equipment, use the guns, don't use the guns. You're training to do actual combat. Matter of fact, very strange situation. Again, no one will know this, but the 3 or 4 times that we went to Slapton Sands, we all congregated, marched in lines of 2, thousands of us, to this boating area where you would go to Slapton Sands. And the English civilians that would line up in the streets to see us off said, well, we'll see you this evening. And they were right, because we were back. When we went on the actual invasion, which was the same route, they said, you won't be back. Now, how they knew, I don't know, because we weren't sure. They knew. It leaked, I don't know how. It was supposed to be the top secret of probably World War II. But they knew, and they were right. I don't know to this day how they knew that. I never interrogated them.
Now, on the actual day, how did you know that was for real? Did they tell you?
Yeah, no, the actual day was June 5th, was the date of the invasion. We were on the boat from the morning of June 4th on. We were in the English Channel, which was enormously busy with boats and airplanes. As a matter of fact, I thought it was so busy that you could walk across the English Channel from one boat to the other. That's how many were there. And then much later at night on June 4th, we were just there. We were supposed to hit the morning of June 5th. It was called off. The invasion was called off temporarily. The tides were much too rough and too high for the little boats that we were going to go in on to go in. You couldn't go in. It would never happen. They would overturn. So they delayed it. Now this is when you're on pins and needles. Now when are we going to invade? Here we're on a boat. I mean, and there's not very much to do, and you don't feel like doing very much as well. Anyway, later in the day on the 5th, they did say through Eisenhower, General Eisenhower, that the invasion will be tomorrow morning, June 6th. And in fact, it was. He said it would happen no matter what the tide was, although they expected it to be much better than the 5th. And it was. And it was. So on June 6th, somewhere about 4:30 in the morning, we went off on ropes down the side of this big boat, down to these little tiny boats called SLCVP, landing craft for either vehicle or personnel. They're small boats, 40 men to a boat. And you went down this rope and you into this little boat, and these little boats, there were a lot of them. These are the boats that would go we were 10 miles out at this point, toward the beach, the actual invasion. And then when the boats took off, we started to go toward France. And of course the seas were a little rough, not as bad as the day before, but they were rough. And as I said before, a lot of the soldiers were seasick. A lot of them were so sick they wanted to die right there. They did 10 minutes later, but they wanted to die. It was a bad trip. And then as the boats came very near the shore, I mean within 50 yards of it, they would drop the ramp. The front of the little boat has a ramp, you drop it, and then we were all supposed to run off. Well, I got shot on the boat, stepping off the boat into the water, which was about 3 feet deep. You could stand in the water. But I got shot then and there. Most of the guys didn't get off the boat. They were killed. Most of them never got off the boat. They were a very easy target. The ramp was down. The Germans were looking you right in the eye with guns and equipment, and they just didn't have to aim. They're going to hit you. And most of them got killed. And in fact, I don't remember 30 or 40 boats that came in on Omaha Beach. There were 5 beaches. Omaha was, in fact, the worst. I'll explain why in a minute. And not one of the boats got off the beach. The naval personnel that drove each boat got killed. And those boats, they were mired in the sand. I understand some of them are still there, rusted and rotten, but there. And none of them got off the beach. All of the guys got either killed or wounded. Fortunately, I got shot, but I was able to survive, primarily because I ran like hell across the beach in sort of a zigzag fashion. You would go left to right, make yourself a little less of a target. And then I got a little lucky. There was a little body of water on the beach, not much, but a little. But having been born and brought up in Coney Island, I dived under the water, and I gained about 30 yards by being underwater, and then it ended that body, so you come up. And then I had to still run, but now not 30 yards less than I would have, which would have been a total about 100 yards, so you got about 70 yards to go. And I got it behind an embankment, big, tall sand embankment that gave you a lot of cover. And there were 5 other Americans there. They were all shot in the legs. None of them could walk or move. They would probably survive, but they couldn't move. They were incapacitated. I could, because I was shot instantly in the head. So the legs, none of that was any serious problem. And so there we laid. Now that was the actual hit. The ramps dropped at 6:30 that morning. We got behind the sand dune probably 6:35. That was very quick.
How did the men with the injured legs get there?
How did I manage?
How did the men with the injured legs get there?
I think in various spots, one carried another, not together, but other guys carried them one at a time, because the idea was not to leave any man behind. And then the guys that carried them, they got killed. Everybody got killed on the beach. There was no way that you could survive the beach unless you got behind this huge sand dune. And the interesting thing behind the sand dune was that in back of it were the Germans. They didn't know we were there, or they would have just walked over and captured us. There was no combat involved. We had no equipment. We had no guns. We had nothing, because when the ramp dropped, we threw everything away so that we would have no weight to carry. Even a raincoat, which was about a pound, you threw away. You didn't want any weight. You had to really go. And so that we had no guns. My machine gun was in the English Channel. And so you can't fight them with sand and rocks. So it was a very one-sided deal. And we then were behind this embankment for the whole rest of that day. And then an interesting thing, I say interesting, it was a sad thing, but from my vantage point, I could see the entire beach. I'm just looking at the beach. And there were, I don't know how many dead, not wounded, they were dead Americans on the beach. But the tide came in again a little later that morning, very, very fast, and went out very fast. And in doing that, it washed out all the bodies into the English Channel. There was nothing on the beach except those boats that couldn't get off. The interesting thing was, I'm sure that the parents, mothers, wives, whatever, of these soldiers that were killed probably got the telegrams of missing in action, MIA. They were not missing, they were killed in action, but you wouldn't know it. They were in the English Channel on the bottom of a channel. So that had to resolve itself ultimately.
And that was actually on the same day, the morning of
That
June
was
6th?
an hour and a half, 9 o'clock that morning. It was all immediate. All this happened very quickly. By noon, as a matter of fact, we were just laying on the beach. I could have had a picnic if I had a little barbecue stand and some frankfurters and hamburgers, but we didn't have that. So it was all very quick, all in the morning. And then the afternoon, and now the Germans that were behind us for the rest of the day. Now, incidentally, there was a German Panzer Division is what was there. And why were they there and not on the other beaches? The reason being that the American Air Force that was flying at around midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, previous morning, were doing reconnaissance work, and they saw nothing at Omaha Beach. And they reported not much obstacle. And what happened was that about 3 or 4 in the morning, that same morning, after the reconnaissance finished, by accident or whatever, the German Panzer Division, the 352nd Panzer Division, was on maneuvers. And by accident, they pitched tents there and set up the guns there, not knowing or caring, because they never thought the invasion was going to be there. The invasion was going to be in Calais, in France, not there. And that's why General Rommel, the German general equal to our General Eisenhower, who was there, left to go to Berlin to party. I think it was his wife or his daughter, somebody had a birthday. And he left because the invasion was not going to be there. And the Air Force substantiated that fact. There's nothing there, but they were there, 4 o'clock, by accident. And that's who did all the firing. They just, unbelievable. The Panzer Division, they're good soldiers. There was 15,000 of them. They had full equipment. We had sand. So this was like a tough morning. And so they were behind us. And like I say, if they felt like walking down to the beach, they didn't. But if they did, we're captured.
How close were you?
Oh, 50 yards. They were right behind us. We couldn't communicate. We couldn't talk. I mean, no sound, nothing. Nobody lit a cigarette. Well, cigarettes was soaking wet anyway. But you're dead. Just lay there. Oh, and incidentally, side issue. That the night of June 6th, like 12 hours after we landed, the darkness, or maybe about midnight. Although it was June, it was very chilly, and the 5 guys that were with me that could not walk or run were sort of shivering and so on and so forth. So I, like I said, I won this war by myself. I ran down to one of the boats, little landing craft. I knew that had blankets in their little side drawers. And middle of the night, I ran down, figured, you're not going to see me, pitch black. Got a few blankets, ran back, covered them, because I wasn't chilly. I just was trying to figure out how we're ever going to get out of here. And I covered them, And so that helped the situation somewhat, and that was that night. Now, you do have to say, well, now, how did you get out of there? What did occur? Well, what happened is the next morning, and I mean 24 hours later, just around 6, 7 o'clock the following morning, a little tiny boat pulled up onto this beach with 2 American sailors. And they unloaded little wooden crates of ammunition onto the beach, maybe 10, 15 crates, and then they were going to get in the little boat and go back to the battleship, whatever it was, that they came off of. And I'm watching them, and there's nothing on the beach, there's no clue to anything. You would never know there was a war. Now, I know the Germans are looking at them, and they're going to play with them. They're going to let them do what they want to do, and then they'll kill them. However, they did unload, and then they just sat on the beach and smoked a cigarette. It was as if there was nothing there, and I really don't blame them. They didn't know it. Ignorance is a wonderful thing.
They didn't know the Panzer Division was there?
They who?
Did they know the Panzer Division was there?
No. No. They didn't. They didn't see any clue. They didn't see any dead bodies. They knew that there was a battle there, but that was over with, and everybody moved to a different situation, I would guess. And when they were through with the cigarette, and now they are ready to leave, they're going to go. And I sensed that, and I knew that, so I thought I better make my move because there's no way we can get off this beach. So what I did is I got up, and I started to run as fast as I could run, hoping that I could break a world's record, again zigzag, across this, about 100 yards, across this beach, to them yelling and screaming all the while that I'm an American, 1st Infantry Division, don't shoot. And I jumped into that little boat and I told them to, you just go. I'll explain it later. Just go as fast as you can, as far as you can. Again, zigzag. Don't go a straight line. They did that not knowing what was really going on, but they did it. I guess by then they recognized the patch on the shoulder and so on and so forth, 1st Division patch. And now all of a sudden, then the Germans started firing. The fun and games were over. They were going to decide to kill us. And they were missing. They were hitting all around us, but they were missing. Close, but missing. And we were getting further and further away. And we actually got away. We went 10 miles to a battleship. I forget whether it was the Tuscaloosa or the Alabama, but it was a huge battleship. We pull up alongside of it, and I see, I don't know how many American sailors holding pistols aiming at me. Because we'll see what happened is 2 fellas left that ship, 3 came back. Who's that 3rd guy? They don't know. Anyway, that worked out all right. I'm telling you, 1st Infantry Division. And then they interrogated me as to what the situation was on the beach. And I explained that there are 5 Americans laying there. They cannot get off. And I don't know anyway how you're going to get them off. But there is the problem. Well, the captain decided what they will do, and I suggested it too, was to use these 16-inch guns, these huge guns that fire 10 miles, and fire about 5 miles over the beach, and then keep bringing it back, 4.5 miles, 4 miles, 3.5. By then you're scattering the Germans, you're breaking their positions, and you're sort of easing the situation that maybe that night you can send in a team or 2 or 3 and rescue the 5 guys. Well, that's exactly what they did. They fired from 5 miles beyond the beach into 4.5, 4, and so on in increments. And then it got dark, nighttime. They sent in 2 rubber boats with 40 men to each boat, 80 men, American sailors, onto the beach. And they did rescue the 5 guys because the Germans by then had scattered. They didn't stay in their positions anymore because they were being fired upon with these guns, and they had to go to other areas. And they did, which left no opposition on the beach itself. And when I say beach, I keep it, there were 5 beaches. The other 4 were, again, there was some situations, there were enemy fire, nothing resembling Omaha Beach. The reason being the German Panzer Divisions were not there. Everything was supposed to be at Calais. So they had minor injuries. I understand on one beach they had 139 injuries. We had millions killed. So you just cannot equate the two. I think the total of the other 4 beaches would have equaled the one beach. Incidentally, that entire operation, D-Day, was called Operation Overlord. That was the name of the operation. To this day, it's Operation Overlord. Now then, what occurs then is that they got the 5 guys on our boat. We were all in what they call the sick bay area. It's like a hospital part of the ship, huge ship. We went back to England with this ship, and which was not a bad move on my part. And well, in England, what happened is they took us to a hospital, and we each got treatment and this and that and so on and so forth. But like I said, in the infantry, there's very few ways out. You either get killed, or you get amputated, or you get and I'm not trying to be funny, but you got to have a very serious wound. These were not serious wounds. We are going back to our outfit.
What was your wound exactly?
How's what?
What was the wound exactly?
The one I had was, actually it was a shell or a bullet, I don't know what, hit my helmet, split the helmet, part of the helmet went into the head, and bleeding, bandages, the head opened up. It was 6 weeks in the hospital. It was an operation, surgery. They did a great job. They did a fantastic job. Matter of fact, the doctor was a colonel, full colonel, that did it. Was a surgeon from Boston, Massachusetts, that said to me, it's going to look pretty bad for a while, and then no one will ever know. That's what he does for a living. And I said, I hope you're right. We're on the same page. And anyway, he was right, as a matter of fact. He was absolutely right. And I then, by the middle of July, I did go back to my outfit in France, still in France, in the infantry, and I saw 3 of the other 5 were there with me. 2 I never saw again. I don't think anything happened. I think they maybe went home, but I don't know that, or limited duty. But they didn't come back to the infantry. I thought maybe I could join them, but it didn't work out that way.
Now,
So-
the infantry is now completely different group of men.
A lot of different men. Yeah, the infantry keeps being replaced pretty much every week. I thought maybe every Monday. We had guys that got killed or wounded or shot or whatever, and replacements would keep coming up. And so you really didn't get too friendly with a lot of the replacements, because they generally wouldn't be there next Monday anyway. They might be in a hospital, but you don't stay there too long. You're in constant combat every minute of every day. If it's quiet, you don't know what's around the corner anyway. There were situations that you had to be alert. As a matter of fact, when they sent in spots some tank outfits to sort of help us, you could use a tank here and there. I and a couple of my closer friends never walked near any of the tanks. The tanks are a target for the Germans, and the Germans would fire on the tanks, and why be near it? And it worked out fine, because a lot of guys, replacements, didn't know any better, and they got hurt. They got hurt. So the situation was, try to become as little known as possible, and don't make waves, don't make shadows, and be very careful and be alert and be sort of on guard every minute of every day. If you hear a sound, pull your gun. Pull your gun, because if you hear a sound in front of you, it's German. There's nobody in front of the 1st Infantry Division, nobody except a German. That we were the very front line in the entire war. Other divisions were too, but we were.
But the 1st Infantry also really had a legendary history.
Yeah, the 1st Infantry does have a legendary history. Yes, it does. The 1st Infantry Division was under George Washington. It was the 1st Infantry Division of the United States Army. Again, I wasn't exactly desirous of joining the 1st Infantry Division, but however, having no choice, I was there. But that is the history. They were well known, they were well regarded. As a matter of fact, by a lot of German prisoners that we subsequently took in different spots, they feared the 1st Infantry Division. That had a reputation, I think, from North Africa and Sicily yet. As I said, I wasn't there. Maybe that's where they got the reputation. Because if I was there, it might have been a different story. However, there was a reputation that the 1st Infantry Division might be the worst division in the American Army to fight, just like we thought a Panzer Division was the worst infantry type of group to fight. They were excellent, and I guess so were we. Maybe not the draftees, but the regular army that we were with, which most of us were a regular army. Incidentally, with part of the story, I thought we could maybe back it up with some photo of a situation. Now, this is an excellent photo of the actual actual invasion, 6:30 in the morning of D-Day on June the 6th, 1944, taken by a photographer, United States press photographer, Robert Capa, who died shortly after taking this picture. It's very authentic, it's excellent. I don't know, and I never will know, whether I'm one of the people in this photo or not, but it's extremely realistic, it's excellent, and it's exactly the way it was. And as a matter of fact, staying with that and staying with the invasion, I neglected to mention that there was a United States Army stationed in England with no people, no guns, no ammunition, nothing. It was a fake army under General Patton. That was a diversionary situation leading up to the actual invasion, and it would lead the Germans to believe that the invasion again was going to be at Calais. And it was well done. It was rubber, human beings, looked like human beings in rubber, little boats in rubber and everything else. So whenever a German aircraft or reconnaissance would go over that area, they thought that was a manned army. And it wasn't. There were no people there at all. It had a general who subsequently became a fantastic general, but at that point it was just diversionary, and it reinforced the Calais situation, which is why we had a problem by accident and not by design at Omaha Beach. It shouldn't have occurred, but it did, and therefore I just wanted to show this photo to illustrate how authentic it really was, this split second of the invasion.
Where was Mr. Kappa taking that picture?
I don't have it. I have no idea. I didn't know that anybody was there except us. That is, press or anybody, because it was the one place you really wouldn't want to be in the entire world, was Omaha Beach. And I guess that's a voluntary situation. Believe me, it was. And I didn't see any press, quite frankly. I didn't see a lot of things except my own outfit. So if he was there taking this picture, I don't even know. I wouldn't know. I was looking at how do you get to that sand dune? The only thing in my mind was that.
You might be in there.
Well, I might. Yeah, I might very well be there. It's a very authentic picture. As a matter of fact, very hard to see. But there are little obstacles on that beach. Very hard to see it on the photo. Those are mines. If you touched or set off a mine by touching it with your hand or your foot, you die. It explodes. And the Germans set that up on purpose, just in case there would be an invasion, and they had to be ready. And there were mines, there were land mines, there were water mines. It was heavily fortified. Well, I did want to mention that on the day before the invasion, but across the English Channel, between England and the United States, there were so many ships of all sizes, all shapes, all types across the English Channel that, as I said before, you literally could almost walk the 82 miles across. It was enormous coverage by the United States Navy, the English Navy, and I guess any other allied navies. And though incidentally, at the same time, in the air, the sky was black with airplanes. Again, the Royal Air Force from England and the United States 82nd Air Force Division were in the air, flying continuously. I don't know how many sorties. Every 5 minutes they were coming across and bombing and strafing the area. As I say, the only reason that the Germans successfully had a group there is that they weren't there when all this was going on. But it was going on all day before the invasion, so that they were preparing so that when we did the invasion, there would be nothing there. No Germans would be, they wouldn't be alive, or they would have scattered because of the enormous aerial bombardment as well as the naval bombardment. It was just, it was a sight to see, unbelievable. Matter of fact, if I had a camera, if I had nothing to do, I'd have captured this, but it was incredible. And it's a side thing, and then we get into the invasion, and then we drop the ramp, and here we are. And a friend of mine by the name Don Wilson, who was in the 1st Division with me, essentially from the Bronx, New York, as I was then. And he was the one that yelled across from me in the channel. I was already wounded, shot. He wasn't. And he yelled, "Throw the gun away, too heavy," and I knew that anyway. And then when we were on the beach, and he again survived, he was one of the maybe 2 or 3 people that did not get shot on that beach somehow. And he was only 6'4". How they missed him, I don't know. But they did, and he came over to me to see if he could help me, but he couldn't help me. The situation was not that good. But I sent them to reach into my belt and take out a chocolate bar, because I had a chocolate bar in my belt and I was a little hungry. And then he did do that, he gave it to me, and I tried to eat it, but of course my whole head was numb. Not in pain, but numb. I couldn't even open my mouth, I couldn't even move my cheeks, so I couldn't eat the chocolate bar. So I cursed him a little bit for giving me something that doesn't work, and then he had to leave. He had to sort of find somewhere to go or whatever to do. He didn't know what to do, because he, as I say, he was not wounded, and that was that little humorous situation in the middle of the chocolate bar. But the naval thing, the confrontation with the enemy was enormous. The morning of June, the day of June 5th, then came the invasion. Don Wilson, the chocolate situation, and also in the water, throw everything away, and which I knew to do. I was aware that they were firing, and as I say, he as 6'4". No, nothing touched him. He got the whole thing. He seriously got terribly wounded later on in the war, because as I said before, if you're in the infantry, there will come the day that you get shot.
Was he in F Company with you?
Did he?
Was he in F Company with you?
Side by side.
Side by side.
Side by side, yeah. Matter of fact, he shared my hotel room in England for 6 months. We're 4 of us. He was one of the 4, and myself. And this was the way that the Army worked in those days. But you had to get shot. Well, I got shot 2 more times, incidentally, later on too. Minor wounds, minor. But it has to happen. You can't just keep standing there without getting shot. You can't even describe it. I'll say you had to be there, but you don't want to be there. So anyway, there we are. So now I'm back in France. I'm back with the outfit, the same outfit, a lot of replacements, a lot of different people, and some the same. Don Wilson was there. Again, still hadn't been shot. And we then continued on into France. We had to go through what they called the Maginot Line. It's a line that the French erected, very poorly, I might add, that was supposed to save France from anybody trying to conquer France. It was my opinion you could just walk over that line. We just walked over it. It was nothing. It was there, but it was of no consequence whatsoever. And then we went through all of France, major battles. Battle of St. Lo, there were many. And here and there you liberate towns, and the civilians that came out to greet you, you were like a national hero every 34th hour, it seemed to me, because we were liberating a town every day. We just come in with the guns, and the Germans, well, they took off, they evacuated. And we liberated the civilians who were under 4 years under Nazi rule, as a matter of fact. So they were sort of indoctrinated to living a German way of life after a while. And now here we come. So they came out of their house with wine and flags and all the stuff that you see in the movies. And it was just that way, the conquering hero, so to speak. That might have wanted to be somewhere else, but here we are. And we went through France. We liberated the entire country. And then after a couple of months of that, we didn't get to Paris. We got to many, Cherbourg, St. Lo, many cities. And then we got into Belgium. We had to attack Belgium. We did. We got into Belgium. It was all of this is in the direction of getting into Germany. We were going to get into Germany, one way or another. And so we got into Belgium. And the first town we hit was not a town, it was a city. It was major, called Liège. I believe it was L-E-I-G-E, Liège, Belgium. It's sort of a famous town. Famous like Brussels is famous, Liège is famous, like New York and Washington are famous. Got into Liège, and some of the civilians came out to greet us there with something we hadn't seen since we were in Europe, ice cream. They gave us ice cream. Now, I love ice cream. This was great. We all had ice cream, in France there was no ice cream. Anyway, we got ice cream, and then the first night in Liège was this funny situation. We set up sort of headquarters in Liège, and a company is 40 men. We were a company of 40 men. There were many companies, but we were 40 men. Half of the 40, 20 of us that night, bunked down in little basement apartment houses to sleep for the night because there was no battle going on at that point. We had taken Liège. But the other half were about a mile away with another area. But it was part of our company. They were guarding our left, we were guarding their right. However, in the middle of the night, we hear all kind of firing guns, battles, and we woke up and we were like, what is this? We're supposed to be nothing, we're gonna have ice cream. Like, what is going on here? It turned out that there were several German groups of soldiers that had laid back. And one half of our company was in a terrific firefight. Some of them got killed. We were having a party. And this is the strange part of war. War is funny. And war does strange things. And this is a strange thing. 20 men are having a battle of their lives. Of course, then we joined them and we decided to end the conflict. We did. But at the same time, this happened. 20 men are fighting. We're sleeping or having ice cream. And it's very hard to describe that. Because at certain times, we fired on American airplanes. Again, this can happen. If they're coming by and they strafe us by accident, they don't mean to, we fire at them. Whether we hit them or not, I doubt, but we fire. So there's a firefight going on between the American infantry and the 8th Air Force. It also happens on the ground. These things happen in Belgium, it happened in Germany, where for some strange reason, an American outfit of infantry or artillery would come behind us because they're on their way to somewhere else. And we're in front of them, but they think we're Germans. They don't see us, but they hear noise. So they're firing, we turn around our guns and we fire. I mean, I open up the machine gun and we have a strange situation. It's Americans fighting Americans. And this can happen. And it happened, I think, more often than you'd like to know. But it happens. Now we're in Belgium, we took Liège, and we continue. We go through Belgium, and now we have a problem. We have to get into Germany. Now the Germans did build a line that was absolutely unbelievable to fortify their country. The Siegfried Line. The Siegfried Line was a line of ammunition, guns, fake houses, mines, tanks, stuff that you cannot believe to keep you out of Germany. And when we first approached, well, within a few hundred yards of Germany, we were going to go to Germany, we see these little thatched huts. I said, well, you know, they're no problem, we just blow them down. And one fellow that's a little bit familiar with the situation of warfare said those are not thatched huts. They are metal and cement, little tiny buildings housing 40 to 100 Germans with machine guns and armor, and fake leaves and trees and gardenings in front of it to make it look like a thatched hut. It's not a thatched hut. Be careful, be careful. So we started to sort of creep and crawl up to it, and meantime it's quiet, but then all of a sudden they're firing the machine guns through little holes in the walls of the thatched huts. They were occupied. They were what this fellow said they were. They were fantastic. And how do you do this? So a couple of guys in my outfit, and in other outfits as well, I'm sure, what they did is they waited till dark and they crept and crawled right up to it and lobbed hand grenades into the holes. That sort of scatters the Germans within the building, and the doors open so that they can get out. They want to get out of that building because now it's not a good place to be. With a machine gun, I'm firing at the open door. Whoever comes out is not going to come out. And so is everybody else. And I guess we killed every German that tried to come out. And we take over the building. We go, it's a building. You could live in there. There's a kitchen, there's stoves. There's a building that they built and then faked it in the front. And there were many of them all through the line of Germany, all through.
Was that sort of on the front line of the...
Part of a line of, I guess, about 80 miles of a line separating Belgium from Germany. They did not want you to get into Germany. I mean, it's pure and simple, and they did a great job. So now, that night, we're in this little building, and about 2, 3 in the morning, we hear artillery firing. German artillery is firing at our position. They're not hitting, but they're hitting very close. And it's raining artillery. It's raining. I mean, you can't go out. It's coming down. But we are a little concerned at the fact that the German infantry in front of the artillery can be creeping and crawling back up to us to kill us. And so the artillery is keeping us sort of in there. You can't come out. And we don't know if the Germans are coming or not. We're looking, but it's pitch black. You can't see anything. And they're firing. So the captain has to make a terrible decision to send one man out to, are the Germans coming or are they not? And well, to make that a long story, he does pick somebody. That guy, unfortunately, opens the door and his body gets blown back in. He's not out 1 second. He's dead. He's dead. It was an instant artillery hit. Machine gun hit, not artillery. So now we have the same problem. Now we had a guy in our outfit called Paul Shiflett, believe it or not, from Shiflett Hollow, Kentucky. And he loved firing, and I think he was born with a gun in his teeth. And he said, I'll volunteer, I'll go out and see. Well, thank God somebody volunteered, because no one wanted to go out. Anyway, he goes out, closes the door, and he's out, he's gone. Now the artillery is still coming down, it's coming down, and it stops about, an hour and a half later, quiet. But it's still like 4 in the morning, it's pitch black. Now we're alert, we're on guard. I got that machine gun facing right out the hole. We're out, we're looking, because anybody that moves now, I'm firing. But there's nothing. And then around 7 in the morning, daylight comes, there's a knock on the door, we're gonna have company. Believe it or not, it's Paul Shiflett knocking on the door. We see it's Shiflett. We open the door and he is furious at us. Where were we all night? Why didn't we help him? We're looking at him like he's crazy. What happened is, he, as I said, was born, I think, with a gun in his mouth. He got out, he climbed the tree, he saw the Germans were creeping, crawling up, just like we thought. They were right there. He killed them, one at a time, firing at the back man, and then the guy in front of the back man leading to the front. So the front never knew the back was getting shot. And he killed a lot of them, not all of them, unless some ran away. We went out, of course, to examine. There they were, dead American. He was put in for the Congressional Medal of Honor. He did get the Distinguished Service Cross. He didn't get the Congressional Medal of Honor because he wasn't put in by a high enough rank. The Congressional Medal of Honor is a real honor, and you really, a general, maybe a full colonel, should put you in for it. The only one that saw that of rank was the captain, which is not to demean the captain, but that's not a general. And so he did get the Distinguished Service Cross. He had about 19 other medals beside that, but he did get that. He loved the war, he loved fighting, he loved firing, and it's just one of those things. You need guys like that on your side. And he did that. We had a few like that. A fellow by the name of Chick Reed, who chased Rommel in North Africa in a Jeep 82 miles and couldn't catch him because Rommel left in a helicopter. We had guys like that. These were like I said, the enlisted men that were in the Army from the first day, and they were not draftees. And so you need guys like that. So anyway, now here we are, and he gets ultimately the Distinguished Service Cross. And now we're in Germany, but now we have to take a pretty large city called Aachen. Aachen city is huge. It's a big city. It's well occupied by Germans. Are you having a problem?
Nope.
Well occupied by Germans. German divisions were there and so on. But we surrounded Aachen, we outnumbered them in Aachen, we were ready to do battle in Aachen when, with a megaphone and loudspeakers, General Omar Bradley came up, and he, through the loudspeakers, announced to them that they were totally surrounded, there was no way that they could get out of Aachen, where they will all be killed unless they came out with their hands up and surrendered Aachen. Well, a few did, most didn't. We started firing, the rest of them did. They had no chance. Anyway, they came, we captured them, not much fighting after that, they were captured. And now we're in Aachen, and then we didn't know that the Germans left behind, here and there, deliberately, sharpshooting snipers that would hide in buildings along Aachen. Aachen had a lot of apartment houses, it was a big city. And they would pick off an American soldier when they saw them, they would kill you. That's what they were hired to do. just hide, shoot, and then hide again, and so on. So I had a situation. I guess I'm always in the wrong spot at the wrong time. Like I said, the infantry, not a typist. So I'm standing in the doorway of a small apartment house, lighting a cigarette. I smoked in those days. I figured maybe that was a better way than the other. Anyway, I smoked in those days, and across the street was another 4 or 5 story apartment house. And instantly, for a flashing moment, at the top floor front window, I saw a German soldier. Briefly, he fired. He hit me. He shot, and he hit my finger as my finger was going to my mouth to take the cigarette out of my mouth. He did hit, but he didn't hit the head. He aimed, but close. Anyway, here comes the hero part. I ran backwards into the hallway of the building I was in, ran as top speed as I can, up 5 flights of stairs to the top floor, pulled out my little pistol, and I kicked in a doorway, hoping that that's the front, and if it wasn't, I'd use another doorway. But it was the front, because I could see the street across, and I laid on the floor, figuring I'll creep up to the window, but I saw a dead American was in this room, and he had a carbine, American sort of a rifle, laying next to him. So I picked that up, like my talk practice was terrible, but I picked that up, crawled to the window, looked across, and I did see him. He didn't see me, but I saw him in the window across the street, facing me. But I mean, he wasn't just standing out sightseeing, but you could see part of him, and I wasn't sightseeing either. However, I now take aim at a stationary target, and I pull, the carbine is loaded, and I pull the trigger, and the carbine has 16 shots. And I fire all 16 shots at him, drop the carbine, run like crazy, back down, out of the apartment, down the 5 flights there. Meantime, there's a couple of other American soldiers from my outfit that knew me. And they said, where are you going? They didn't know that this was all happening. But they were running with me, not knowing what to. We ran into the building that the German was in. We ran up, we knew it was the top floor. We didn't know which door. Got to the top floor and kicked in one of the doors. It was the wrong door. I figured I had to hit him. We kicked in another door, and there he was. He was dead on the floor. Fine. So one of the fellows that went with me, I forget his name, but I knew him very well. He looked at the thing, did a quick examination, and he starts laughing like this is a comedy sequence. And I said, like, what's so funny? You just killed a guy, which is every day you kill a guy. He said, no, you fired 60, you hit him twice. You missed 14 times. And the bullet holes are all over the wall. Stationary, it shows you how great my aim was. But thank God we hit him twice. So he was dead, and then that ended that situation. There were mop-up crews, incidentally, behind us. We call it Graves Department. I don't know what name they had. American soldiers. That their job was to take care of the dead, enemy or allied soldiers. And then so now we took Aachen, and we move on. This gets to be late fall, like maybe late October, early November. It's getting cold. It's not snowing yet.
44.
But yeah, this is 44. This is the fall, like I'll say November 44. Mm-hmm. But that bullet wound is now throbbing. It's bad, and half of the finger is not there. So they told me, you better get to. We had a portable evacuation hospital situation, not a real hospital, but there were medics and so on. So I went there. They took me by jeep. It was about 5 miles back, and I went there. And there were doctors, and what they did, they put splints on the finger, and they bandaged the finger, and so on and so forth. And they said, this could be bad. You better go get to a hospital in Belgium. And they took me to a hospital in Belgium. And they said, this is going to take a few weeks. We don't want you to lose the finger. You're close to losing the finger. That was that bad. I didn't realize that. Because I was not in pain, but numb. Not in pain. All right, however, from Belgium, they decide that particular hospital was what they called an evacuation hospital. You don't stay there more than 14 days. If you're deemed more than 14, they move you out. They deemed this 20 or 30 days, so they're going to move me out. I said, fine. I have a great place to move. How about the United States of America? Anyway, they sort of disagreed with my idea, but they did send me to England with this bullet wound finger, which was okay by me. And, that's what happened. You go by ship to England. I forget the town in England, but it was a major hospital. in England, and I spent most of the winter, that recuperated in about 7-8 weeks. The finger took long for one reason or another. It was more serious than I thought, actually, because I think they thought it would lead to losing the hand. It was a serious thing. Anyway, I did spend the rest of that winter in this hospital in England. And then ultimately, of course, what happens is that after 90 days, you go before a board that reviews your case, and they either send you back to the front line, believe it or not, after all that, or home. Depends on the situation. Well, they wanted to send me back to the front line. We had a little disagreement there. So one of the major doctors there in the interview, looking at the paperwork, he said, "My God, you were in 4 invasions. You were wounded 3 times." I said, "Yeah, I really don't want to go for 4. It was not my ambition." And he sort of agreed, but he was not the final say. There's a board of 3 or 4 men. You don't get back to the United States that easy. Usually limited duty or back to the infantry. And I was ready to go either way because there was no choice really for a PFC in a situation like that. However, after several interviews and several conversations, at long length, they stamped me what they call ZI, Zone of Interior. When they rubber stamp your paperwork, ZI, you go home, United States. Not home, but United States. That Zone of Interior is the United States.